10 years ago, enthusiasts feared that computers would ruin everything, and this GLI runs more code than a SpaceX rocket, but it might just make it better. The differential is basically a supercomputer for traction, the suspension constantly recalculates damping rates, and the DSG transmission, it literally predicts your next move. Welcome to 2025, where computers don't just help you drive better, they help you drive quicker. And with Volkswagen's most advanced GLI ever, I can tell you, it's a very good thing. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, last year we drove the GLI with the manual gearbox, and I really enjoyed that, but we've never driven a GLI with the dual clutch gearbox on the show. So it's 2025, they've mildly refreshed this Jetta, so the time is now. And before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at this in a little more depth. For 2025, the GLI gets a light refresh both inside and out. There are some subtle styling changes, including a new light bar on the front. The interior is revised with a new 8-inch infotainment display. Beats audio with a 400-watt amplifier is standard for you audiophiles. And of course, the manual gearbox has been retained for us driving enthusiasts. Under the hood is still the 2-liter turbocharged 4, makes 228 horsepower from 5,000 to 6,700 RPM, 258 pounds of torque from 1,700 to 4,400 RPM, your choice of a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed DSG. It is front-wheel drive with an electronically controlled limited slip diff, suspensions based around McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear with adaptive dampers. Steering's variable ratio, variable assist, it is electrically assisted of course. Disc brakes all around, and the front brakes come from the previous Golf R. Wheels and tires are 18s. It does come standard with some all-season tires, which we've discussed in a previous episode. Curb weight of this DSG fitted GLI is 3,311 pounds, which is about 50 pounds heavier than the manual gearbox-equipped GLI.
Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode.
Here in the driver's seat, I'm very, very happy with this setup. There's a tremendous amount of adjustment in the seat and the steering column, so anyone can fit comfortably and properly behind the wheel, and the first person to complain that I'm sitting too close to the steering wheel loses. The seat's very comfortable, again, highly adjustable. There is heating and cooling in this 2025 Jetta GLI, so you can be very comfortable anytime, but I really appreciate how this seat supports me as a driver. There's a decent amount of bolstering, but most of all, I've just got a fantastic relationship to the steering wheel and to the pedals. Steering wheel's got a great shape, it's the right size, encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3 where they should be, of course. The steering wheel has more of these touch-based buttons than a TV remote, but unlike your grandparents, you're going to use all of them. There's ambient lighting in here with 10 colors because sometimes you want your German sedan to look like an episode of Miami Vice. Ergonomically, it's all pretty straightforward. There are a lot of touch-based controls here for climate controls and a lot of things going on in the infotainment system. There is a volume knob, thankfully, and I'm happy with that. Love the infotainment system. Use it on wireless Apple CarPlay. Works very well in that regard. The instrument cluster is digital, very, very clear in all kinds of lighting conditions. There is a wireless charger here, and it puts out more power than the first generation Jetta did. The Beats audio system bumps harder than your neighbor's kid's old Honda Civic, and unlike that car, here you actually get bass notes, not just a whole bunch of rattles. Visibility is great. It is a Jetta, of course, so you can see everything ahead of you, although I'd like some bigger outboard mirrors because we know on this channel, if we adjust all 3 of our mirrors, we can eliminate blind spots because blind spots are a myth. In terms of spaciousness, well, it's a Jetta, and the modern Jetta is known for how spacious it is inside as well as in the trunk. You could probably fit 6 dead bodies in the trunk. Not that I encourage you to do anything like that. maybe 6 golf bags instead. And fun fact, the rear seat has triple the amount of room as a Spirit Airlines flight. Now, the thing is, with that launch, of course, we have some very, very low grip conditions. We're on winter tires, it's cold outside, and there's a bunch of salt on these roads. So this is not as quick as it could be in the dry, certainly with a sticky tire as well in the summer, but still, this is quick, and the dual clutch gearbox makes the whole thing very, very easy. Launch control's fairly easy. Make sure we're in sport mode, which we are, transmission in sport, and press the traction control button until the second light comes on. It says ESC Sport, driving stability limited, front assist not available, foot on the brake, foot on the gas, rev settle to 4,000, dump the brake, and there we go. Oh, this is quick. 0 to 60 happens in the mid fives, like 5.6, 5.7, something like that. Though the manual gearbox equipped GLI is a little bit slower, but that's okay. I'll take the manual for its driving engagement. But this dual clutch does exactly what it's supposed to do. And if you're into straight line acceleration, well, this is the only way to go. But that's not the entire story of this drivetrain. There is that 2-liter turbo. Sure, 228 horsepower doesn't sound impressive, but neither does my subscriber count, and we know how that goes. This engine just benefits from modern turbocharged technology, so you've got the best of both worlds. Makes peak power way up in the rev range and peak torque through the middle of the rev range. It's definitely the best of both worlds. Extremely flexible, and if it were any more flexible, we'd have to call it Gumby. The DSG is so quick. It shifts in milliseconds up and down the box, and certainly quicker than I can say, but the manual's better. You do have shift paddles here, so it's very easy to stay on top of it. There is a manual mode, of course, so if you do want to control the gearbox manually, you can do that. Whether you're driving on the open road, if you're enjoying just fantastic canyon road drive, which we don't have in this part of the world, well, put it in sport and be happy. It definitely does better for me in manual mode when I'm hustling this thing through the corners and want to be a little bit more precise. But that limited slip diff, it's electronically controlled, distributes torque as it's needed, and it reads all of the systems in the car. So it's measuring all kinds of things, steering angle, G loads, all sorts of things to make sure that the torque is distributed appropriately for maximum acceleration in any condition. And on top of that, under deceleration, E-diffs are fantastic. Unlike a mechanical limited slip diff, an E-diff is not fixed. So under deceleration, you've got confident braking, and that's one of the upsides to an E-diff that no one really talks about. One of the things it does extremely well is mitigate torque steer, and torque steer is not a thing. This week with the GLI has been in cold conditions, so we've got lower grip all the time, and that E-diff sorts out torque distribution between each front wheel exactly the way I want it. And I know Civic Si owners are angrily typing comments right now about how their drivetrain is better, but fact of the matter is they've got some work to do to catch up to this GLI with the DSG. The last thing I have to say about this drivetrain is, thankfully, Volkswagen kept the manual, so it is available to us, and I think that's because somebody at Volkswagen actually believes in joy. When it comes to handling, that's what the GLI is all about, and we found some corners. Let's have some fun, shall we? Turn-in is crisp, the suspension soaking up the bumps. E-diff has no trouble putting down power. Still low grip, winter kind of driving conditions, so there's not a lot of grip here, but let's see. Exiting the corner, no trouble at all. Yeah, this DSG shifts so quickly. It's fantastic. Coming into the corner, get on the brakes. Downshift 2 gears. Tough corner here, off camber on the exit. See how the diff does? Fantastic. Tracks wonderfully as we're accelerating out of the corner. Suspension just soaks up all of these bumps. That's one of the upsides of these dampers. They can be compliant when you need them. And if you do want to stiffen them up where your roads are smoother or you're doing a track day, well, you can do that as well. I shouldn't be surprised. These dampers are fantastic. They read the road better than I read owner's manuals. The suspension's a fantastic blend of ride comfort and the kind of support you need when the corners are interesting and you're throwing this around and enjoying yourself. In terms of handling balance, well, it's not quite as neutral as something like a Civic Type R or an Elantra N. That's not what this GLI is. It's fairly well balanced and you can rotate it on throttle in the corners. It's responsive in that regard. Onto the throttle. Just tracks a fantastic line. Overall, the GLI handles exactly as it should, and it certainly handles better than I handle comments about my seating position. And yes, steering is electrically assisted, so we're really not getting any direct feel from the two contact patches at the front. Thankfully, there's a decent amount of chassis feel, so through the chassis you can feel what's going on at each of the 4 contact patches. Certainly one of the highlights for me are the brakes. Love these brakes. Excellent feel control modulation from this pedal. I've got tremendous confidence on this brake pedal, and I can really control the attitude of this GLI with this brake pedal. Very, very happy with it. The red brake calipers are a nice touch, and perhaps they're a little brighter than my future as a manual transmission evangelist. The GLI is quintessentially German. Everything has a purpose. Even the fun stuff is engineered. The sport mode doesn't make things louder and harder. It recalibrates 47 different parameters. It's like having a German exchange student organize your garage. Suddenly everything makes sense, works better, and somehow there's room for even more stuff. Even the comfort mode seems like it was calibrated by someone who thinks engineering is a competitive sport. How do you spec yours? Well, this is a very easy thing to consider. What you are looking at is King's Red Metallic with the black roof, and the interior is Grigio. No, not Pinot Grigio, Karen. Grigio with red crust. It's some red trim on the seats, and it's actually pretty cool inside. Base price in the US is $32,715, and as tested, this is $33,820. In Canada, this is $34,995, and as tested, this is $35,790. And by the way, there's no difference in cost between the manual or the DSG transmission. At this price point, the GLI is like finding out that high-end restaurant has a secret happy hour menu. You're getting Golf R brakes, a sophisticated differential, adaptive dampers, and a transmission that thinks faster than a caffeinated chess grandmaster. Meanwhile, people are paying luxury car money for crossovers that handle like drunken moose. It's not just a performance bargain, it's a masterclass in priorities. And sure, you could buy a base 3 series, but then you'd have to explain why you spent more money to go slower. In terms of speccing yours, well, it's a fairly simple question to answer, and there's only one important question. That is whether you want the manual gearbox or the DSG. Regular viewers of the show know that I would go with a manual gearbox, no questions asked, but there are merits, as we've discussed, for this DSG, and I certainly appreciate them. My verdict, well, let's start with fuel consumption because it is a concern for some of you. Mine is poor because I simply don't care about the mileage. I'm enjoying every minute behind the wheel and use the throttle when needed. I'm getting about 20 miles per gallon or 11.7 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends, and 20 miles per gallon is fine with me. I suppose if I actually cared or paid attention, I could probably do a lot better. But the GLI is not about fuel consumption numbers. And here's the thing. Those computers, they're doing a lot of work. That eDiff, it's sending up to 100% of power to either front wheel, not just reacting to slip, but anticipating it based on steering angle, throttle position, and lateral Gs. It's like having a racing driver's instincts just processed at superhuman speeds, and for racing drivers like me, it allows me to exploit even more of the GLI's performance. And that dual clutch gearbox, it's not just quick. In sport mode, it'll downshift before you even ask for it, and it holds gears through corners like it's reading your mind. The genius here isn't just the technology, it's how invisible it all feels. Every computer, every processor, every line of code works toward one goal, making the GLI more engaging, not less. It's technology that enhances rather than sanitizes. Without question, this all comes together in the corners. Everything is just working cohesively. The transmission just responds exactly as I want. It's incredibly quick, and that diff just puts down power. The suspension does a great job of soaking up the bumps. I've got this in the custom drive mode where I've got the damper set to a little softer and more compliant because in this part of the world, the road surface is pretty nasty. You know what's funny about the GLI? It's technically a compromise car, not as practical as a GTI, not as track focused as a Golf R, but it's like that friend who's good at everything without being the best at anything. Daily commute, comfortable. Backroad blast, capable. Track day, competent. Need to impress the in-laws? Sophisticated. It's not the best at one thing, but it might be the best at being good at everything, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. 10 years ago, some of us feared that computers would ruin driving, but in 2025, they've made it better. This GLI is VW's most advanced sports sedan, and it's proof that the future of driving is brighter than we thought. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Volkswagen Jetta GLI. Hope you liked this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications like this, and as always, sharing is caring, so please share this, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers, from drivers. If any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please head up our merch store, links here, links below, and there's lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including a very popular line of Save the Manuals merch, and Volkswagen still makes manuals. It's this GLI with the manual gearbox. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Volkswagen Jetta GLIs. Since you've hung around this long, we'll have a look at our episode from last year about the Jetta GLI with the manual gearbox. And I definitely appreciate the merits of the manual and this DSG. I think you'll enjoy that episode. See you again next time.